Many of us still think that mental health only applies to those people who are mad, such as those we see on the streets talking to themselves or acting strange. But that's a big mistake because mental health goes way deeper than that, especially in this part of the world, African countries to be precise. We ignore a lot of telltale signs that point to mental health issues simply because we don't know any better. We don't understand the weight of these issues until it's too late. If someone is down with malaria, stomach upset or allergy, we move fast. We rush them to the hospital. We buy drugs and call in sick for them. We treat it like real emergency because it is. However, when someone is usually quiet, withdrawn, or when they are not their usual self, we tell them to snap out of it. Why? Because we conclude it's just mood swings. But here is the truth. When someone starts to shut down emotionally, that's not just a phase, it's a sign. So let's stop brushing it off. Let's start showing up, because silence is often the loudest cry for help. Just like a wise man has said, mental health is the beginning or starting point of everything in life. I believe that's why the Bible says to guard your heart with diligence, because out of it are the issues of life. That ties beautifully with mental health issues. Truth is, if you are not in the right frame of mind, it will show in your finances, health, and the way you relate with other people. Contrary to what most of us believe, mental health issues don't start when someone runs mad. It starts quietly, in thoughts, in your emotions, in the way you handle pressure. That's why in this video, I want to show you many subtle ways mental health issues show up. Most times, they don't look like what you expect. They hide behind habits, moods, and choices we overlook. But we have to bring them to light so that you can begin to take control of your mental health. You see, what I'm trying to say is that mental health is not just about madness. It's not about somebody that is deranged. It includes the following: depression, mood swings, chronic worry, anxiety, overthinking, and emotional fatigue, and a host of other things that quietly rob people of their peace of mind. If you are not paying attention, these things can grow out of proportion and become bigger issues. So in essence, mental health isn't just for people on the edge. It's something that we all have to manage every day. And that's why I've made it my mission to help you gain control and take responsibility in this aspect. Now, before the video continues, can you give me a second of your time? Are you struggling with your thoughts, or is mental fatigue wearing you out? It's not just about knowing what's wrong, but knowing how to fix it. That's why I created the Wholeness Roadmap Masterclass, a step-by-step guide to help you take full control of your total health. So it's not just about physical health, this includes your mental health as well. In this masterclass, you will learn how to set boundaries for your thoughts and emotions, what to do when your mind feels out of control, how to protect your energy from anxiety, fatigue, insecurity, and resentment, the daily habits that restore your strength, clarity, and peace without overwhelm. If this sounds like something you need, please click the link below this video to join the Wholeness Roadmap Masterclass, and we'll see you on the other side. So let's go back to the video. I maintain that most of us don't realize that our thoughts shape our behavior. I've got plenty of stories to back this up, but this little story I'm about to tell you stands out. Back when I was pastoring my first church, a young man joined the church. He had just gotten into university in the town where I pastored. He became active in church and acted friendly to everyone. At the time, my wife and I had been married for 4 years, and our twin kids were just about 3 years old. One Sunday, we decided to host a few of our church members in our home after church service, and this young man happened to be one of those people that came over. And all of a sudden, he began asking me some funny questions. He asked, "Pastor, how much was that car that we came in?" He was referring to my car, a sleek, nice 2-door Nissan car. So I told him how much it was worth at that time. He nodded his head like he was taking notes. Now, this guy in question was about 20 years old, just stepping out of his teenage years. So I started wondering, did he have some money stored up somewhere? He had just gotten into university and was being sponsored by his parents, who earned average income. So where would he get money to buy a car? And I'm not talking about today, when young people make money online through content creation and all that. This was way back in the early 2000s. There wasn't even anything like social media or YouTube back then. After asking about the car, he moved on to the house. He said, "Pastor, how much is your rent for this flat?" At the time, my wife and I and 2 children were living in a 3-bedroom apartment. So I answered him, but I was still wondering what was going on in this boy's mind. So they all left our house in the evening of the same day that we hosted them. Then, a few days later, this young man started acting strange. He would call my phone and hang up just before I could pick. He kept doing this for days. Then I finally caught my wife's attention to it. I said to my wife, why is this boy acting funny? I'm just his pastor. Even if we were close, why would he take it this far? So after a while, I stopped picking his calls. Then I noticed he stopped coming to church. I have a habit. When someone stops coming to church, I will try and find out why. If they move to another church, I will not bother looking for them. But if they've stopped going to church, I will get concerned. Then I will check on them. I found out that this young man had started attending another church, so I let it be. But sometime later, maybe weeks or months, I can't remember exactly, I heard disturbing news about this young man. He was going about smashing car windshields with stones. The moment things got worse, his friends and concerned people around him did not wait. They rushed him straight to the hospital. That was when it dawned on me that back when he was asking me about my car and the house, he was already showing signs of mental illness. You see, what he was experiencing back then is what medical science calls grandiose delusion. He was already operating in delusion. Imagine a young man, just 20, dealing with mental illness. It almost disrupted his university education. I don't know if he lost any years, but that's why I always warn, take your mental health seriously. There are 4 key areas where mental health affects our lives: finances, relationships, health, and peace of mind. If you don't take care of your mental health, you wouldn't be able to enjoy these 4 key areas of life. You see, you may even get to the point where you don't have the energy to chase opportunities. Some people wake up every morning already overwhelmed, thinking about things they shouldn't be stressing over. I remember this guy from my university days. Though he was a first-year student, he was always making friends with final-year students. Guess why? He wanted to know everything about year 5 before he even got through year 1. Funny? Yeah. He was already trying to borrow notes, asking about final year projects, completely fixated about a future he had not even stepped into yet. You see, that kind of thinking lays the foundation for mental health struggles. Why worry about 5 years ahead when you've not even handled what's in front of you? The Bible is clear on this. It says, be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God, and the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and mind through Christ Jesus. Anytime I mention God or the Bible in my videos, it's not just religious talk, it's practical advice for living a balanced life. You see, God's design is for you to live in peace and not drowning in stress and anxiety. One translation of Philippians 4:6-7 says, the peace of God will rush into your heart and mind like soldiers storming into a troubled country to restore order. That means your Creator wants you to live with peace of mind. The moment you step into anxiety, stress, depression, or overthinking, you are crossing a boundary. That's where mental health problems begin. I heard about the pathetic story of a young lady who was studying medicine in one of Nigerian universities. She was constantly worried about school as if she had control over the entire university system. Now, talking about Nigerian universities, you know how lecturer strikes have bedeviled the education system. It's been like that for years. In fact, back then during my undergraduate years, schools could shut down for 6 months or even a whole year. So instead of adapting, this lady in question spent all her time worrying. Every time she prayed, it was about the lecturer strike being called off, as if she was the only student affected. While other students found ways to stay productive and joyful, she constantly drowned in anxiety. That's when she started slipping into mental illness. You see, before long, she was so lost in stress that she started stripping off her clothes in public. It was that bad. That's why you have to take your mental health seriously. Everything starts in your thought life. When you're stressed, it seems the whole world is on top of you, but it shouldn't be. I learned this lesson years ago, and now I refuse to let anything stress me. For example, I go to the gym almost every day, but if I wake up feeling overwhelmed, I cancel my gym activities for that day. You know why? Because stress builds up when you pile more on your plate than you can handle. Anxiety follows, then depression. I don't know about you, but I don't like being around people who are always overwhelmed because it's a sign they are taking on too much. When you are busier than you should be, you'll be stressed, anxious, and exhausted. I hate meeting people who look like they are carrying the weight of the whole world on their shoulders. You need to constantly remind yourself that you are human, that you can't do everything or control every circumstance. So, if you are being plagued by stress, anxiety, and depression, take a step back. It's affecting everything in your life than you can ever imagine. There are 4 major areas that you must guard jealously to take care of your mental health. So I want us to consider these 4 major areas one after the other. And the first one is in the area of your finances. Let us observe how your mental health affects your finances. And this can be traced to mental stress, among other factors. You see, truth is, most people who are mentally stressed aren't making as much money as they should. Why? One major reason is that they do not have the energy to chase opportunities. They don't have the mental space to think creatively. Stress takes up your creative energy, so you can't focus on how to pivot, grow, or make progress. Emotional spending is another aspect of mental stress. You see, when people have money to fund their mental stress, anxiety, or depression, they often turn to irrational shopping habits as an escape route. They often think that spending will ease the pressure, and that's not true. I've been a pastor for over 30 years, and I've seen this firsthand. In the first church I pastored, there was a young undergraduate lady who struggled with depression. She was always moody. One of her flatmates told me that whenever this lady felt down, she would go out and buy bowls of ice cream, lock herself inside, and eat it all alone. She thought emotional spending and eating would fix her feelings. It was at that time I began to realize that being habitually moody is a mental health issue. I did everything I could to help that young lady. Anytime she came to church, she would be active and engaged, but at home, she would lock herself away for days. You find people like this lady everywhere, spending money to feel better. You see, shopping therapy might feel good in the moment, but it won't solve anything. What's more, it can even lead to financial problems and make things worse. The fear of failure or success can also keep people stuck. Some people keep switching jobs and moving from place to place. They are afraid to stay in one spot long enough to grow. They don't want to face the possibility of failure, and so they run. I remember a lady telling me about a young man at her workplace who was always struggling with work. His boss and co-workers complained about him being late, but they didn't know his backstory. This young man had lost both parents early, and he had to struggle through life. So, the weight of stress, anxiety, and depression had been on him for so many years. The lady told me that she was even trying her best to be of help to this young man. For instance, she planned to send him some money to ease his financial burden. But before she could, she woke up one morning to the sad news that the young man had committed suicide. The night before, she had called him, but he didn't pick up. That was probably when he was being overwhelmed by suicidal thoughts. When you don't take care of your mental health, it can keep you stuck in poverty. There is a solution, but first, you need to see the financial damage that mental health struggles can cause. Let's observe how mental health can affect your physical health. This is where the mind-body connection comes in. If you allow stress to take over, it raises your cortisol levels, leads to weight gain, high blood pressure, and more. That's why I don't allow anything get between me and my mental health. You see, people worry too much about the smallest things. What car they drive, what clothes they wear, and even the type of phone they use. That's why Jesus said in Matthew 6:25, "Therefore I say unto you, take no thought for your life, what you shall eat, or what you shall drink, nor yet for your body, what you shall put on. Is not the life more than meat, and the body than raiment?" What this implies is that your well-being is more important than food and material things. Some think that because we teach faith, we insinuate that people should ignore their well-being and physical health. That's not true. As a Bible teacher who has taught faith for more than 30 years, I take my health seriously. I visit the gym regularly. At 54, I feel strong and fit because I take care of myself. I don't want high blood pressure. I don't want unnecessary weight gain. They are all connected to mental health. Every time I go for checkups, whether at the ophthalmologists or dentists, they always ask this question: do you have any health conditions, high blood pressure, or diabetes? And I confidently reply that I have none. Now, this is not to say that I'm better than others, but because I stay within my health boundaries. Faith isn't an excuse for you to neglect your health. For instance, if you are consuming too much sugar and gaining weight, you can't just confess that everything is fine. That's why I stopped consuming sugar in every form. I don't take sugar at all. At times, if I want to taste something sweet, I use a sweetener that is 0 calorie, just like this one. Also, I know that stress alone is enough to trigger issues like high cortisol, weight gain, high blood pressure, and even diabetes. Things that you don't even want to think about. Mental health is key. For instance, when people are depressed, the last thing they think about is their health. That's when they start overheating or hitting anything in sight without thinking twice. Also, when you are depressed, that's when you throw caution to the wind, skipping exercise and avoiding any activity that requires effort. I've tested this theory over and over, and I've found it to be true. When you are down or depressed, you don't want to do anything, talk less of taking care of your health. And that's why your environment matters. Don't surround yourself with people who talk down on you or make you feel miserable. Imagine if you want to go to the gym and someone says, "Is the gym even for people like you?" It's too late for you. If you listen to those kinds of people, it will affect your mental health. Before you know it, you will start prioritizing the opinions of others over yours. You see, depression can make basic self-care feel like a struggle. I'm talking from experience. Anytime you are depressed, even dressing well or taking care of yourself feels pointless. I remember a woman back in the neighborhood of the first church I pastored. She had about 3 grown daughters and she lost her husband when her children were still toddlers. She decided not to remarry and took full responsibility of raising her kids all alone. Maybe some family members promised to help, but as usual, their support wasn't consistent. She had to do everything by herself. At the time I knew her, most of her kids were already in university, but the burden was taking a toll on her. Though she was a government worker, a civil servant like we always call them, and with all the stress, you could see that it was wearing her down. One day, she approached me for little financial assistance. I didn't have much money at that time, but I gave her what I could. However, something struck me about her appearance. Her clothes didn't match. Her hair was unkempt. And for the first time, I noticed that this woman had started talking to herself while walking down the street. That was when I realized that something was wrong. I mentioned it to my wife, and we both started to observe her closely. It became clear that this woman had developed mental illness. Life had weighed her down, and now she was losing herself in it. Soon, she was seen on the street wearing mismatched clothes, even layering different outfits that didn't go together. You can see why you must be careful with depression. Some people let it get so bad that suicidal thoughts will start creeping in. And once that happens, it starts to affect their physical health. You must realize that your mind controls your body. If you don't believe me, I want you to think about people who deal with extreme stress. You will notice that they often have high blood pressure, constant headaches, or weak immune systems. Some will say, well, that might be genetic, but even if it is, you can still do something about it. But many won't even try it. I once heard about a lady who was extremely overweight. Seeing her, you would even wonder how she manages to take one step after the other. But guess what? She had a very shocking lifestyle. At work, she would sit at one spot from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. without moving. Her food flask was always right beside her. If she needed anything, such as water, she would send someone to go get it. She wouldn't stand up from that spot till it was time to go home. Now tell me, how will someone like that live a healthy life? It's impossible. When you hold on to emotional pain, it weakens your mental health. It affects your immune system, drains your energy, and keeps you stuck in a negative cycle. That's why the Bible tells us to forgive. Don't hold on to offenses. Let go and free yourself. Unforgiveness, bitterness, and stress leave you drained. You see, living in unforgiveness is like drinking poison while you expect the other person to die. If you refuse to forgive, you're only hurting yourself. The person you're holding a grudge against might not even know they offended you. Meanwhile, you are the one suffering while they go about their life unbothered. Your mental health affects everything: your body, your energy, and your peace. Take care of it, or it will take over your life. So, to maintain good mental health, you need to let go of unhealed emotional wounds. Maybe someone broke your heart, ditched you, or promised something and did not come through to fulfill it. Don't hold it against them. If you want to live long and stay in good health, you must free yourself from emotional garbage. This isn't something often taught in Christian circles. They tell you to walk by faith or just pray about it. But the truth is, mental health plays a huge role in your physical well-being. If your mind isn't okay, it will show up in your body. That's why you have to take note of how mental health affects every area of your life. Now, next up, let's see how your mental health affects the way you relate with other people. Whether you like it or not, your mental health shapes the way you relate with other people around you. It shapes the way you connect with people generally. If your mind isn't healthy, you can't have healthy relationships. I once had a conversation with a psychologist to know why some people are always paranoid. She explained that paranoia actually starts in childhood. She also explained that as we grow, some people outgrow their childhood fears. However, she explained that many people still hold on to theirs. So, instead of maturing and letting go, Their fears and insecurities followed them into adulthood and turned into full-blown mental health issues. For the record, I know people who are so paranoid that it affects every part of their life. They don't trust anybody. This may sound funny, but some of them don't even trust themselves. Now, for some, it manifests as unresolved trauma or deep insecurity. Maybe they were abused as children, or they went through something painful. But instead of healing and moving forward, they let that experience define them. So they stay stuck in their past, as if that's all there is to life. This kind of mindset leads to toxic patterns, things like attachment issues or fear of intimacy. For example, I've heard of people who were victims of sexual abuse, and even after getting married, they struggle to be intimate with their spouse. The trauma is still there, controlling their emotions and their relationship. But for some people, it has to do with extreme attachment issues. You will hear them say, "My mother is the closest person to me. My mother this, my mother that." If their mother isn't around, they can't make decisions. Now, it's mostly mothers, but a few times it can be fathers too. They can't function without that one person in their life. And that's dangerous. Now, while there's nothing wrong in you being close to your parents, but you must get to a point in life you should be able to make decisions on your own. Now, parents need to understand this balance while raising their children. If you don't allow your children become independent at the appropriate time, you are setting them up for future struggles. Let your children do things on their own so they don't develop strong attachment issues that will mess up their relationships later. Now, I remember when my children got into university, the schools were far from where we lived. So, we always made sure to take them there when school resumed. My son's school was even farther, and though I would have loved for him to find his way to school, but considering the level of insecurity in the country and bad roads, that made it difficult for us to decide that he should go on his own. So we had to manage to take them to school. But after some time, my daughter came to us one day and said there was no need for us to take her to school anymore. Now, at first, as a good father, I was concerned. But then she explained that her friends had started making fun of her. They told her, "You are too attached. You can't even come to school on your own." Why? Because most of her friends traveled by themselves to school. That was when we realized it was time to let her do things on her own. So she started traveling to school and coming back safely by herself. So we didn't have to worry about how she was going to handle traveling or other responsibilities. She learned independence. I said that to say this, that parents need to be careful not to create unnecessary mental struggles for their children. I know people who are above 30 and still completely dependent on one person in their life, almost treating them like a god. That's extreme. If you're a mother and your daughter cannot function without you, especially when she's already past the teenage years, it will become a problem when she gets married. It will continue to be a problem when you grow old and die. It will be a problem for her when you are not around. She will be paralyzed when it's time to make decisions because she was never taught to think for herself. Now, it's not only about daughters. The same is true with a male child who is too attached. Some parents take it too far. I've heard of grown kids way past their teens who can't even buy stuff at the market because their moms still handle everything for them. Funny enough, some of them don't even know where the market is. How can a parent do that to their child? Let your children see life as it is. Give them responsibilities. Let them make decisions. Don't overprotect them to the point where they cannot function on their own. For those who have been through trauma, whether abused or abandoned, don't let it define you. Don't let it be a mental health struggle that controls you. Leave the past behind you. Even if you were once a prostitute, you should leave that life behind. Whatever is the cause of your deep insecurity or paranoia, you can overcome it. You don't have to stay stuck in your past because it will affect your mental health. As we grow old, we have to leave certain things behind if we don't want them to turn into mental health struggles. Now, I've even heard of people who live in so much fear that they don't even want people to know their names, where they live, or work. I know families where parents tell the kids, don't write your name on anything, not even your exercise book. And those children are so afraid of people that they always quote their names, even in school. There's nothing anybody wants to tell me. That level of fear isn't normal. It's a mental health issue. And when taken too far, it can even develop into psychiatric illness. Avoid mental exhaustion at all costs. Mental exhaustion also makes communication difficult. When you are tired, you either snap at people or shut down completely. The reason some couples fight all the time is because they do not realize that their relationship is not the problem, but mental exhaustion is the problem. It might be that one of the partners is carrying too much financial or emotional weight. Now, you can imagine a family man earning a salary and is trying to save 80% of his earnings and expecting to live only on 20%. How is that sustainable? It will drain them mentally. Some even push themselves too hard to build a house when they are not financially ready for that stage of life. I remember hearing about a couple caught in this rat race. Everyone around them was buying land, so they also rushed to buy a tiny plot so everyone would know that they too can build a house. Now, the real issue is that the land they bought was too far from where they worked. So both husband and wife were worn out by the commute every day. One morning, when they were getting ready for work, the husband noticed that the wife was taking longer than usual in the restroom. It turned out that the wife had fainted on the toilet seat, and this was due to mental exhaustion. So, long story short, they decided to move the family back into town. Most times when you see people who can hardly process simple instruction at work, it's usually caused by mental exhaustion. You have to repeat yourself many times if you want to instruct them to do something, and yet they are not even hearing you. That's mental fatigue, and it's affecting their work, their relationships, and everyday life. Another thing you should watch out for is anxiety and low self-esteem. Why? Because anxiety and stress always mess up relationships. When people don't feel good enough, they get jealous, fearful, and constantly argue over small things. This is one of the reasons I've structured my life to avoid anything that leads to jealousy or comparison. Even in churches today, you find competitive jealousy. People walk into a church and start comparing. This church is not as fine as such and such church, or this pastor is not as rich as such and such pastor. The sad thing is, even churches encourage this by branding themselves as better than other churches. And guess what? They push their members into this comparison trap. So now believers walk around filled with jealousy, fear, and competition. And all these things lead to mental health struggles. I remember hearing about a young man whose car did not have air conditioning. But when he gave some church members a ride, he told them to roll up the windows. When they complained about the heat, he told them to still keep the windows rolled up until they left church premises. Why? Because he didn't want anyone to think that his car had no AC. Are you kidding me? That's low self-worth in action. If you give someone like that access to money, they will steal just to keep up appearances. This same issue plays out in marriages. Some women want to carry designer bags, the same kind that governors' wives and presidents' wives carry. They compare themselves to these high-profile women. Then they pressure their husband to meet unrealistic standards. I've heard wives query their husbands, "Is this all you can do? Go and check what your mates are doing for their wives." That kind of pressure damages a man's mental health and ultimately destroys their marriage. Even if you don't have so much money, but if you have peace, people will think you have more money than you actually do. However, a restless mind will rob you of joy no matter how much you have. Now, I've seen people who do things just to prove a point. Their goal is not personal happiness. It's about showing others that they've made it or that they have arrived. Living that kind of life never will give you peace of mind. Now, you see, some people are so restless that they make life harder for themselves and people around them. I once heard about a woman who was always poking her nose in other people's business, especially in her siblings' families. You see, her siblings' children were already grown, with some in the university, and this woman made it her job to always monitor them. She would secretly go and check her niece's exam results, and those kids would be confused, wondering how she even knew their exam numbers. This woman's problem is that she did not want any of her nieces to outshine her own children. If she heard that one of her nieces was getting married, she would rush to arrange a marriage for her own daughter, just so no one would be ahead of her. But in the end, none of her children's marriages lasted. Why? Because she built everything on competition. She was restless, always looking for ways to outshine other people, and it eventually ruined her family. She even took things to a spiritual level, going to places where they predict the future, trying to see which of her siblings will be richer than her. So funny. People can go to that extent, and it's pathetic. You can imagine that height of restlessness. A restless mind makes it impossible to enjoy peace. If you ask me, that's why some people stay in social groups that had no value to their lives. They neither contribute nor benefit from the group, yet they still remain there. And you will see their phones flooded with notifications all day long. Some people belong to many WhatsApp groups that only keep them mentally drained. Their phones are constantly buzzing. Video calls are coming in non-stop. And if you spend just 2 minutes around them, you can feel the chaos. Now, when these same people say that they have high blood pressure, financial struggles, or lack of peace in their lives, it's no surprise. Their lifestyle is the reason. Their mental health is suffering because they've created an environment that doesn't allow peace to exist. If you do not check your emotions, it will always lead to burnout. Constant worry and the need to be in control will drain your mind. Some people spend hours, even days, worrying about what others think of them. When they post a video online, they will spend the whole day in the comment section, fighting anyone who says something negative. Now, what kind of life is that? That's a direct path to losing your peace of mind. My wife always tells me that I'm strange when it comes to these things. She could bring home a letter from someone and drop it on the table, and the letter can be there for days. I would not even glance at it. Sometimes, letters can stay on our living room table for months, and I wouldn't read a single line. Why? Because I don't stress myself over things that do not add value to my life. Since I married my wife, I've never felt any need to get suspicious about her for any reason in 25 years of marriage. I don't check her phones or monitor her messages. I married someone I trust. So why should I be looking for something to stress over? Some people drive themselves into anxiety by constantly checking their partner's phones, emails, or conversations, and that's how they lose their peace of mind. I remember many years ago, my wife collected my phone to check her email. She must have forgotten to log out because I discovered that her email was still open on my phone. The moment I saw it, I logged out instantly. Of course, a voice was telling me to keep checking some mails because that's the same email where she receives her bank alerts. But I logged out instantly because there was no secret I was looking for. Now, let me tell you, that's how detached I am from unnecessary worry. Now, some people would have memorized every single detail of their spouse's accounts, emails, passwords, just in case. But why put yourself through that? Life is too short to live in unnecessary anxiety. You can either choose peace or live in constant mental exhaustion. The choice is yours. That's the secret to maintaining good mental health, having peace of mind. So, I refuse to live with a restless mind or unchecked emotions. My mental health is my priority, and I protect it at all costs. I don't waste time worrying about things that don't concern me. Most times, when bloggers post online, it's about issues that should never be your concern. And yet, people become so unsuspecting, and they make these issues their concern. And day and night, many people are looking for updates about gossips, tale-bearing, and other issues that will eventually kill their good dreams and aspirations. One day, my wife jokingly asked, "What if one morning you woke up and discovered that the kids and I have disappeared to a place where you can never find us?" I laughed and said, "That means you guys are never mine in the first place, so I wouldn't even look for you." And she burst out laughing. That's how unbothered I am. I don't tiptoe around trying to eavesdrop what my wife is saying on the phone. If she's on the phone, I don't hang around trying to listen in. It has never crossed my mind. This has prevented me from unnecessary emotional struggles in 25 years of marriage. I don't waste my energy on unnecessary things. I don't experience burnout, constant worry, or a need for control. I hate controlling people, and I don't like people who appear to be so controlling. I want peace of mind, and I believe that if I let people be, I will enjoy peace of mind. And I don't entertain friendships with people who try to intimidate me. The moment I sense that negative energy, I cut them off and never think about them again. That's what you have to do to preserve your mental health, because your mental health controls your peace of mind. If you don't handle it well, you will invite stress, self-sabotage, and even addictions. That's when people start picking up bad habits such as pornography, excessive talking, pointless gossips, and what have you. These things creep in when you don't guard your mind properly, and before you know it, they start affecting your mental stability. Now, all these things I've discussed are the areas you need to focus on, but more importantly, you should know how to fix them. That's why I've put together the complete wellness roadmap. It's a step-by-step masterclass designed to help you take control of your total health, which includes your mental health. In this masterclass, you will learn how to set boundaries for your thoughts, steps to reclaim your mind if you've already lost control, how to protect yourself from mental exhaustion, anxiety, insecurity, and resentment. Now, if you want to live above anything that threatens your mental health, this masterclass is for you. Please click the link below this video, and I'll see you on the other side. Also, before you go, I've put together a video where I've taught on the best thought conditioners that will help you to have a good mental health. And that video is popping up on your screen right now. Please click on the video, and I'll see you there. Bye for now.